Commander Tyke gazed out the viewport of Earth's first and only starship, the ESS Dauntless. The ship hung in orbit, its sleek hull reflecting the blue glow of Earth below. At 53 years old, Tyke had gray at his temples and lines etched into his face from years of service. He had never thought he would command a ship that could travel between stars. "Sir, the alien ships are approaching," said Officer Lee, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. Tyke nodded. On screen, the main display lit up, showing 20 ships that gleamed like polished metal under the sun. They moved with perfect order, forming a neat pattern as they slowed to match Earth's orbit. "They're big," said Chief Engineer Ju, standing beside Tyke. Ju was short but strong, with quick hands and a quicker mind. "Each one is at least 10 times our size. And we only have one ship," said Security Chief Kang, his hand resting on his weapon. Kang was tall and broad, with watchful eyes that never missed anything. "Let's not forget that," Tyke replied. "They could destroy us without trying, but they say they need our help, which is hard to believe." The call had come 3 days ago. Strange signals, then clear messages in all of Earth's major languages. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Alliance. They had existed for 300 years and included 15 different species. They had watched Earth for decades, waiting for humans to develop faster than light travel. Most people expected the aliens to offer trade or knowledge. Instead, they asked for help in a war. "Commander," said Communications Officer Nam, "the President is calling. The United Earth Council meeting is about to start." Tyke straightened his uniform. "Time to find out if we're going to war." The United Earth Council chamber was filled with people when Tyke arrived. Leaders from every major nation sat around a large table, with advisors standing behind them. Screens on the walls showed the alien ships in orbit. President Choi stood as Tyke entered. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense manner. "Commander Tyke, please join us. The Alliance representatives will be here soon." Tyke took his seat next to Military Advisor Park, a former general with a stern face. "What do you think?" Park asked quietly. "Is this real or some kind of trick?" "Their technology is far beyond ours," Tyke replied. "If they wanted to harm us, they could have done it already." The doors opened and 3 aliens entered. The room fell silent. The first alien was tall and bird-like, with bright feathers and eyes that moved independently. The second had blue skin that seemed to ripple like water. The third was more human-like, but with 4 arms and silver skin that reflected light like a mirror. "Greetings," said the bird-like alien in perfect English. "I am Admiral Lore of the Galactic Alliance. We thank you for meeting with us." President Choi nodded. "We welcome you to Earth. Your message said you need our help. That seems strange given your advanced technology." Lore's feathers ruffled slightly. "Technology alone does not win wars, President Choi. We face an enemy called the Vraxian Imperium. They have thousands of ships and billions of soldiers. They take worlds by force and use the people as slaves or food." Murmurs spread through the room. "And you want our help?" Park asked, disbelief clear in his voice. "We have one ship. One." The silver-skinned alien stepped forward. "I am Strategic Advisor Meal. We do not need your ship as much as we need your minds." "What does that mean?" Tyke asked. "We have studied your history," Meal said. "Your species has fought more wars against itself than any Alliance race has in their entire histories combined. You understand conflict in ways we do not." The room was silent as the humans took in this strange compliment. "The Alliance races evolved mostly as cooperative species," explained the blue-skinned alien. "Our wars were rare and followed strict rules. The Vraxians fight without rules, without mercy. They accept losses that would horrify us. Our tactics fail against them. So you want us to teach you how to fight better?" President Choi asked. "Yes," said Admiral Lore. "And we offer full Alliance membership in return. Access to all our technology, trade networks, and protection." Science Officer Han, who had been quietly observing from near the wall, finally spoke. "Admiral, if the Vraxians are conquering Alliance worlds, how long until they reach Earth?" The alien leaders exchanged glances. "At their current rate of expansion," Meal said, They would reach your solar system within 15 of your years. The Imao Council erupted in worried conversation. President Choi raised her hand for silence. Commander Tyke, what are your thoughts? She asked. Tyke stood slowly. Madam President, Council members, if what the Alliance says is true, we face two choices. We can wait here for 15 years, building more ships but fighting alone when the Vraxians arrive. Or we can join now, learn from Alliance technology, and face the enemy as part of something larger. With one ship? Park asked again. One ship with the right ideas might be worth more than 100 ships without them, Tyke replied. The debate lasted 3 days. Some leaders wanted to refuse, focusing instead on building Earth's defenses. Others saw opportunity in joining the Alliance. In the end, they agreed to help, not from kindness but from the simple need to survive. 1 week later, Tyke stood in the Dauntless's briefing room with his senior officers. The wall screen showed images of Alliance ships and star maps. The mission is simple, he said. We join the Alliance fleet and help them develop new tactics against the Vraxians. With respect, sir, said Tactical Officer Jin. Our ship wasn't built for war. It was made for exploration. The best explorers adapt, Tyke replied. That's what the Alliance needs from us. Adaptation, creativity, unpredictability. Engineer Ju raised his hand. Sir, I've been studying the technical data the Alliance shared. Their ships are far more advanced, but their battle formations are, well, they're too perfect, too orderly. Like they're following a textbook, added Science Officer Han. She was small and quiet, but her mind was always working. They fight wars like they're solving math problems. And the Vraxians? Asked Security Chief Kang. They act more like a swarm, Han said. Overwhelming force accepting high casualties. The Alliance races value each life too much to match that approach. Tyke nodded. So we need to find a third way. Not a swarm, not a perfect formation, but something the Vraxians won't expect. Human warfare, said Medical Officer Song, speaking, for the first time. She had been reviewing alien biology files. Deception, surprise, psychological tactics. Exactly, said Tyke. The Alliance has asked for 100 volunteers. We leave in 5 days. The day of departure came quickly. The Dauntless was resupplied and modified with some Alliance technology. 120 crew members stood at their stations as Tyke gave the order to move out. On the main screen, Earth grew smaller as they accelerated away. Next to Earth, the massive Alliance ships waited to escort them. Course laid in, sir, reported Officer Lee from the navigation station. Alliance ships are signaling they're ready, added Officer Nam. Tyke looked around at his crew. They were afraid, as any sane person would be. But they were also ready. Send word to the Alliance, he said. The Dauntless is ready for FTL jump. The stars on the view screen stretched into lines as the ship accelerated to faster-than-light speed. Earth vanished behind them. They were heading to war with one ship against thousands, but sometimes one ship is enough. The journey to the Alliance Coordination Hub took 12 days. For the crew of the Dauntless, it was a time of learning. Alliance officers came aboard to teach them about the galaxy, while Alliance engineers helped them understand the new technology that had been added to their ship. Commander Tyke spent most of his time studying the enemy. The Vraxians looked like large insects walking on 2 legs. They had hard outer shells, 4 arms, and eyes that could see in all directions. They came from a harsh world with many predators, which made them tough and willing to sacrifice themselves for their group. They're like a mix between ants and wolves, Tyke told his officers during a briefing. They work together perfectly, but they're also hunters. Science Officer Han had been analyzing Vraxian battle records. Their ships attack in waves, she said, pointing to a display showing dots of light moving across a star map. They don't mind losing the first wave if the second wave can break through. How does the Alliance usually respond? Asked Tactical Officer Jin. With perfect formation, Han replied. They form defensive lines and try to hold position. It works at first, but the Vraxians just keep coming until the Alliance forces are worn down. Security Chief Kang frowned. It's like watching someone who only knows one move in a fight. Exactly, said Tyke. The Alliance needs to learn new moves. The Alliance Coordination Hub was built around a neutron star. It was massive, with hundreds of docking bays for ships of all sizes. When the Dauntless arrived, they were directed to a small bay near the outer ring. Not exactly VIP treatment, muttered Engineer Jew as they docked. We have to earn their respect, Tyke replied. We're newcomers here. A group of Alliance officers was waiting when they disembarked. Most were species the humans had never seen before, with body shapes that ranged from almost human to completely alien. Commander Tyke, said a tall bird-like officer that Tyke recognized as Admiral Lore. Welcome to Alliance Space. The High Command is waiting for you. The High Command chamber was a large room with a circular table. Around it sat the leaders of the Alliance fleets. They were all different species, but they all had the same look, tired, worried, and desperate. Your vessel is smaller than we anticipated, Admiral Lore said as Tyke took his seat. Quality over quantity, Admiral, Tyke replied calmly. The briefing was grim. 3 Alliance worlds had fallen in the past month. Millions of people were dead or captured. The Vraxian fleets were advancing on all fronts, and the Alliance forces were retreating. We need you to join Fleet 7 at the Miral system, said Fleet Commander Zeet, an amphibious being with webbed hands. The Vraxians are expected to attack within days. My ship alone? Tyke asked. Your ship will join 57 Alliance vessels, Zeet replied, against approximately 300 Vraxian ships. The room was silent as Tyke considered this. The odds were terrible, but not as bad as he had feared. We'll need all the information you have on the Miral system and the Vraxian attack patterns, he said finally. You'll have everything we know, promised Admiral Lure. But I must warn you, Commander Tyke. Many in the Alliance doubt that one small ship from a new species can make any difference. You will need to prove your value quickly. Tyke smiled slightly. Admiral, throughout human history, it's often been the outsider who sees what everyone else has missed. Back aboard the Dauntless, Tyke called his senior officers together. The ship was being resupplied and prepared for the journey to Miral, which would take 3 days. It's worse than we thought, he told them, showing the battle reports on the main screen. The Alliance is losing on every front. And they're sending us straight into a major battle? Kang looked surprised. 1 ship against how many? 300 Vraxian vessels with 57 Alliance ships on our side, Tyke answered. Engineer Jew whistled. Those are bad odds. The ships they're sending with us are well armed, said Tyke, but they fight like they're following a rule book. The Vraxians have figured out their patterns. Science Officer Han had been quiet, studying the battle logs. She looked up. Captain, I've noticed something strange. The Alliance forces never use tricks. No fake retreats, no surprise attacks. They just line up and fight head-on. Tyke nodded. I noticed that too. They fight wars like they're solving math problems. Permission to speak freely, sir? Asked Tactical Officer Jin. Always, Jin. We're going to die if we fight their way, Jin said bluntly. But if the Vraxians have never seen human tactics, his eyes gleamed with excitement. Maybe we can try something crazy. Crazy how? Asked Medical Officer Song, looking concerned. Jin turned to Engineer Ju. Could we modify our sensors to send out false readings? Make our ship look like it's in several places at once? Ju thought for a moment. Maybe. The Alliance tech we received includes some electromagnetic field generators, if we recalibrate them. And what about weapons? Jin asked, turning to Security Chief Kang. The Alliance. Ships fire in perfect patterns easy to predict. What if we fired randomly? Not randomly, Kang corrected. Unpredictably. There's a difference. Tyke watched as his officers began to build on each other's ideas. This was what the Alliance needed. Not just human tactics, but human creativity. I have another idea, said Han. I've been studying Vraxian communications. They rely heavily on central control. If we could somehow disrupt their command ships, we'd need to get close to them first, said Kang. And they keep their command ships in the back, added Jin. So we need a way to get past their front lines, Tyke said. The room fell silent as they considered the problem. Then Engineer Ju smiled slowly. What if? He began. What if we use their own attacks against them? Their first wave creates explosions, debris. What if we hid in that chaos? Fly through an explosion? Jin looked shocked, then grinned. That's exactly the kind of crazy I was thinking about. It would be dangerous, warned Song. The ship could be damaged, people could be hurt. Less dangerous than facing 300 enemy ships in a fair fight, said Tyke. We're not here, to be fair. We're here to win. For the next 3 days, the crew of the Dauntless worked non-stop. They modified systems, ran simulations, and prepared for battle. Alliance engineers who came aboard were confused by the changes, but allowed them to continue. On the final day before departure, Fleet Commander Zeet requested a meeting with Tyke. Commander, I've received reports about unusual modifications to your ship, Zeet said. My engineers don't understand what you're trying to do. With respect, Commander, Tyke replied. That's the point. If your engineers can't predict what we're doing, neither can the Vraxians. Zeet's amphibious eyes blinked slowly. You intend to surprise them? I intend to confuse them, deceive them, and then hit them where they least expect it, Tyke said. In human warfare, sometimes the best move is the one your enemy thinks is too foolish to try. This is not how the Alliance fights, Zeet protested. And that's why you're losing, Tyke said gently. It's time to try something new. As the Dauntless prepared to depart for Morale, the crew was tense but ready. They were one small ship going to face an enemy fleet of hundreds. But they had something the Vraxians had never seen before: human unpredictability. Sometimes that's enough to change everything. The Morale system had 3 planets circling an orange sun. The second planet, Morale 2, was home to 6 billion Alliance citizens. It was a world of deep oceans and small islands, populated mostly by the water-breathing Miri people. If the Vraxians took this world, those billions would become slaves or food. The Alliance fleet arrived 2 days before the expected Vraxian attack. 57 ships arranged themselves in a perfect defensive formation around the planet. All except one. The ESS. Dauntless hung back away from the main fleet. On the bridge, Commander Tyke studied the Alliance formation with a critical eye. They're making the same mistake again, he said to his officers. Perfect lines, perfect spacing. The Vraxians will know exactly where to hit them. Commander Zeet rejected most of our suggestions, Tactical Officer Jin reminded him. He says the Alliance captains aren't trained for our kind of tactics. Not all of them, corrected Tyke. 12 ship captains have agreed to follow our lead. That will have to be enough. After the planning meeting with Zeet, Tyke had approached individual captains. Some had dismissed him, but 12, those who had lost battles to the Vraxians before, were willing to try something new. Our Chaos Squadron is ready, said Jin. What's the plan, sir? Tyke pointed to the display showing the Alliance formation and the expected Vraxian approach. The Vraxians will hit the front lines first with smaller ships. While the Alliance is engaged there, we take our 12 ships around this moon. He indicated a small moon of Morale 2. We use it as cover, then strike at their command ships from behind. What about the modifications? Asked Engineer Ju. We'll use them all, said Tyke. False readings to confuse them, unpredictable weapon patterns, and when the time is right, he paused, looking at each officer. We fly through the explosion of their first wave to reach their command ships. Science Officer Han looked concerned. The hull might not hold through that kind of stress. It will hold, said Ju firmly. I've run the numbers. It's risky, but possible. And if we don't try, added Security Chief Kang, the Vraxians will overwhelm the Alliance fleet like they've done before. Millions will die. Then we're agreed, said Tyke. Inform our allied ships of the final plan. We move on my command. The Vraxian fleet arrived exactly as predicted. 300 ships, from small fighters to massive carriers, emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. They immediately formed into attack waves, with smaller ships in front and command vessels safely in the rear. Their following their usual pattern, reported Officer Lee from the sensor station. First wave is accelerating toward the Alliance front line. Alliance fleet is holding position, added Namtyke watched as the first wave of Vraxian ships crashed into the Alliance formation. Explosions lit up space as ships on both sides were hit. The Alliance line bent but held. "Now," said Tyke. "Signal our squadron. We move while they're focused on the front." The Dauntless and its 12 allied ships broke away from the main battle, using the small moon as cover. They circled around, approaching the Vraxian fleet from behind. "Activate the electromagnetic field modifications," Tyke ordered. Engineer Ju worked his console. "Fields active. To their sensors, each of our ships now looks like 3 separate vessels. They'll see 39 ships instead of 13. The Vraxians are launching their second wave," reported Lee. "The Alliance front line is taking heavy damage. We need to move faster," said Tyke. "Time to explosion run?" Jin checked his calculations. 30 seconds until the optimal explosion. It's from an Alliance cruiser that's been hit badly. When its power core goes, it will create a blast wave we can ride through the Vraxian lines. "All hands brace for extreme maneuvers," Tyke announced shipwide. "Medical prepare for potential injuries." The seconds ticked down. On the main screen, they could see a damaged Alliance ship venting plasma, its core about to breach. 5 seconds, counted Jin. 4, 3, 2, 1. The Alliance cruiser exploded in a massive ball of energy. At that exact moment, Tyke gave the order. Full thrust. The Dauntless shot forward directly toward the explosion. The other Allied ships followed, though more cautiously. As they entered the edge of the blast, the ship shook violently. Warning alarms blared. "Hull stress at maximum tolerance," shouted Ju over the noise. "Maintain course," ordered Tyke, gripping his chair as the ship bucked like a living thing. The Dauntless burst through the other side of the explosion, now moving faster than its engines alone could propel it. The blast wave had given them an extra push, launching them directly toward the Vraxian rear lines. Only 5 of their allied ships had made it through with them. "Where are the others?" asked Tyke. "They turned back," Jin reported. "Couldn't handle the stress." 6 ships will have to be enough," said Tyke. "Weapons target the Vraxian command ships. Fire when ready, unpredictable patterns as planned." The Dauntless opened fire, its weapons hitting the Vraxian command ships before they could react. The 5 allied ships joined in, striking from different angles. On Vraxian sensors, thanks to Ju's modifications, it looked like 18 ships attacking. "Their rear formation is breaking," reported Kang excitedly. They didn't expect an attack from behind. Science Officer Han was monitoring Vraxian communications. "They're confused. The command ships are sending contradictory orders." On the main screen, they could see Vraxian ships turning to face this new threat. But without clear orders, they moved in different directions, sometimes colliding with each other. "Target their communication nodes," ordered Tyke. "Those spire structures on the largest ships." The Dauntless concentrated fire on the communication spires of 2 Vraxian command ships. When they exploded, Han reported immediate results. "Vraxian battle coordination is failing," she said. "Whole sections of their fleet are acting independently now, without central control." At the front of the battle, the Alliance main fleet noticed the confusion in Vraxian ranks. Led by Commander Zeet, they pressed their advantage, punching through weak points that opened in the Vraxian formation. The battle that should have been a certain Vraxian victory turned into chaos. And in that chaos, the Alliance, for the first time, had the upper hand. "Vraxian ships are starting to retreat," reported Lee, disbelief in her voice. "They're pulling back." The bridge crew stared at the tactical display, watching as Vraxian vessels broke off engagement and moved away from Miral 2. It started with a few ships, then dozens, then the entire fleet. "They're running," said Kang, as if he couldn't believe. "Not running," corrected Han, retreating in order. "They're preserving their forces now that they've lost command control." Take nodded. "A sensible decision. But still, for the first time, the Alliance has forced the Vraxians to retreat. As the Vraxian fleet disappeared into faster-than-light travel, The communication system crackled with an incoming message from Commander Zeet. "Commander Tyke," said the amphibious alien, his voice carrying an emotion that the translation system identified as shock. "Your tactics were unexpected, but effective." "Thank you, Commander," replied Tyke. "Sometimes the unexpected is exactly what's needed." "The Alliance High Command requests your presence immediately," Zeet continued. "They wish to understand how one small ship managed to turn the tide of battle." Tyke looked around at his crew, tired, some injured, but all proud. "Tell them we'll be there. But first we need to repair our ship and tend to our wounded." As the Dauntless limped back to join the main Alliance fleet, word was already spreading through the ranks. The human ship had done the impossible. Maybe, just maybe, the war wasn't lost after all. The Alliance Coordination Hub buzzed with activity. News of the victory at Morale had spread quickly, bringing hope to races that had known only defeat for months. In the center of this excitement was the ESS Dauntless, Earth's lone ship, now, docked in a place of honor near the hub's main command center. Commander Tyke stood before the Alliance High Command. The circular chamber was packed with leaders from many worlds, all eager to hear how a single human ship had changed the course of a battle. "Your tactics were unorthodox," said Admiral Lore, his feathered crest twitching with what Tyke had learned was a sign of agitation. "But effective," added another council member, a being made of what looked like living crystal. "We wish for you to teach our fleet commanders these methods," Lore continued. "And we would like to understand how your single vessel accomplished what our technologically superior ships could not." Tyke exchanged glances with his officers before responding. "Admiral, with respect, our advantage wasn't technological. It was psychological." "Explain," requested Lore. "The Vraxians have adapted to your way of fighting," Tyke said. "You rely on perfect formations, coordinated movements, and direct attacks. They expect this and have built their strategy around it. We simply did what they didn't expect." Science Officer Han stepped forward with a data tablet. "We analyzed the Vraxian communication patterns. They rely heavily on central control, much like some insect species on Earth. When we disabled their command ships, their coordination fell apart." "And the explosion?" asked a council member. "Our reports say you flew directly through an exploding ship. That seems suicidal." Engineer Ju smiled slightly. "Calculated risk, not suicide. We ran the numbers and knew our hull could withstand the stress, barely. The Vraxians didn't expect any ship to try such a maneuver, so they left their rear unguarded." The council members murmured among themselves, clearly disturbed by this approach to warfare. "What you suggest goes against centuries of Alliance military doctrine," said Admiral Lore finally. "That's precisely why it worked," replied Tyke, "and why it can work again. The Vraxians have learned to counter your doctrine. They haven't learned to counter ours." After hours of discussion, the council reached a decision. The Dauntless crew would train Alliance officers in human tactical thinking. In return, the Alliance would share more advanced technology with Earth and begin construction of defense systems for the Sol system. Over the next month, the Dauntless became a floating academy. Alliance officers rotated through in groups, learning not just specific tactics but an entirely new way of thinking about conflict. In the ship's converted cargo bay, now a training room, Tactical Officer Jin led a simulation for a group of alien officers. No, he said, stopping the exercise. "You're still thinking in terms of optimal solutions. In battle, sometimes the best move isn't the perfect one. It's the one your enemy won't predict." A tall plant-like officer waved its leaf hands in frustration. "But the formation you suggest leaves our flanks exposed. It's inefficient." "Exactly," said Jin with a smile. "The Vraxians will see that weakness and move to exploit it. When they do, they'll be right where we want them." In another section of the ship, Security Chief Kang trained elite teams in boarding actions, a concept the Alliance had abandoned centuries ago. "Sometimes," he explained as he demonstrated hand-to-hand combat techniques, "you need to get up close. Technology can fail, weapons can miss, but this," he landed a precise strike on a training dummy, "this rarely fails." Meanwhile, Engineer Ju worked with Alliance scientists to replicate the Dauntless's technical innovations. They struggled with his approach, which often favored quick, creative solutions over elegant, perfect ones. But this power coupling could be 3.8% more efficient, protested an Alliance engineer, pointing to Ju's design. Yes, agreed Ju, but my version can be built in half the time with materials we already have. Perfect is the enemy of good enough. When you're fighting a war, Science Officer Han had perhaps the hardest job. She worked with alien researchers who had evolved as cooperative species, trying to teach them to think like predators. The Vraxians see you as prey, she explained. They don't respect you, they hunt you. To defeat them, you must understand how predators think. Our species evolved beyond such primitive instincts, said one researcher haughtily. That's why you're losing, Han replied bluntly. The Vraxians didn't. 6 months after Earth had sent its lone ship to join the war, Commander Tyke received a transmission from home. On the screen, President Choi looked more confident than when they had left. The United Earth Council has approved construction of 15 additional vessels, she informed him. They'll be ready within the year. In the meantime, how goes the war? Tyke allowed himself a small smile. Madam President, I believe I can report that the tide has turned. The Alliance has begun to adapt our tactics. They're still uncomfortable with some aspects, but they're learning. And the Vraxians? They're still dangerous, said Tyke honestly. They outnumber us, and they're starting to adapt to our methods. But they're no longer unbeatable. They evolved as hive-minded predators, which makes them strong in direct conflict, but slow to adapt to new threats. On a nearby screen, a battle map showed Alliance fleets in blue and Vraxian forces in red. For the first time, there were more blue arrows moving forward than retreating. So one ship was enough after all, the president mused. One ship with the right people, Tyke corrected, glancing around at his crew. And the right ideas. As the transmission ended, Officer Nam reported an incoming message from Alliance Fleet Command. They've approved our plan for the Orion offensive, she said, a hint of excitement in her voice. The Orion offensive was Tyke's bold plan to take the fight directly to Vraxian territory. 6 months ago, such an idea would have been dismissed as madness by the Alliance. Now they were ready to try it. Inform the crew, said Tyke. We move at 0600. That evening, Tyke stood alone in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Among them were worlds held by the Vraxians, worlds once belonging to the Alliance and somewhere very far away, Earth. Admiral Lore entered quietly, coming to stand beside him. Your ship is to lead the offensive, the Admiral said. The fleet captains insisted they trust you now. Not me, said Tyke. What I represent. A new way of thinking. Lore's feathers rippled, and what Tyke had learned was thoughtful agreement. When your people joined us, we thought we needed your ship. Then we thought we needed your tactics. Now I see that what we truly needed was to remember something we had forgotten. What's that? Asked Tyke. That peace is valuable precisely because war is terrible, said Lore. Your species never forgot that. You carry the memory of conflict in your very bones, and that gives you strength we had lost. The next morning, the Dauntless, once Earth's only starship, moved into formation with its alien allies. Around it gathered a fleet of ships now painted with irregular patterns to confuse enemy sensors, arranged in unpredictable formations, crewed by beings who had learned to think like humans. They were going to take the fight to the enemy. And this time they didn't just have hope, they had a plan. Sometimes one ship is enough to change everything.